Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I am here again with Sue Squared. Both Suzanne Strausser, VP of Consulting and Development, and Suzanne Weber-Smatko, Manager of Consulting Services, and both are from here at CORE. Glad you could be with us again.
We're a good combo. So
They are.
We are so excited to be here.
We are.
Yeah. You like combos like with pretzels and the peanut butter inside or the cheese or
Oh,
whatever.
Yeah. We love quality.
We
yes,
do
yes.
love quality.
You do love quality.
Yes.
Well, today is going to be the first of a three-part series on non-conformances and corrective actions. But before we dig into that, let's just learn a little bit about our guests that we might not already know, Suzanne and Suzanne. Let's start with the OG, Suzanne Strausser.
No, wait. Does the O stand for old?
Old guard, yes.
Yeah, okay. I still get the old part.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Well, the original. No, it's original.
Oh, gotcha.
The OG, the original Suzanne.
Fine.
You're old, Suzanne.
I
I'm new,
actually,
Suzanne.
yes, I am. Actually.
You're a grandma now.
I am
so,
a grandma, so that's cool.
Yes.
And
Congratulations on that.
yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, I've been at this stuff for years and years.
So you've done tons of non-conformances and corrective actions.
Yes, in fact, I have.
Awesome. Well, how about you, Suzanne, too?
Yes, as you know, many years in quality, various different roles, and I too have done my fair share of non-conformances and corrective actions as well.
Yeah,
So,
and you had a couple months to your anniversary here at CORE as well.
yeah.
Well, that's great. We're always happy to have you ladies here. So like I said, this is the first of three-part series. We're going to start with non-conformances. Next week, we'll look at corrective actions. And third week, we'll have a little bit more corrective action and actually talk about trends and analysis of your non-conformances and corrective actions. But let's get started. And we're going to go by Suze and Suzanne. So you're Suzanne Weber-Smatko is Suzanne. Suzanne Strausser is Suze. So Suzanne, what is a non-conformance?
A non-conformance is a non-fulfillment of a requirement. Really, it's any error in the process that may result in your company's deliverables, whether it be relatable to products or services that you're providing. A non-conformance can occur in both of those scenarios.
Okay.
The term covers pretty much a broad spectrum of issues that could occur in your business. And it's best to think of it as a nonconformity as a symptom that something in your process is not right or has gone wrong.
So it's a symptom, not the actual cause.
And we're going to talk in detail about that later.
We are.
Yeah, because we love quality. But if you notice a nonconformity or a requirement not being met, I'd like to kind of categorize, because there's confusion between when you document a nonconformance versus a corrective action.
Mm-hmm.
I like to specify that a nonconformance is really an occurrence of something that goes wrong.
Okay.
Noticing a nonconformity within your product or service will kind of guide you to the symptom. Again, we're going to get into that. But often these symptoms are signs of a much deeper problem within your process.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows you the pathway to identify the root cause of an issue, the true underlying problem that will take a bit more time to fix.
So like if you're in an accident, so let's say you're in an accident, you ran into the car in front of you. That's the actual non-conformance. You hit the car. The reason it happened might be slick roads, bad brakes, worn
you
tires.
typically are going to disposition a non-conformance with a quicker fix.
Right.
Some examples of those will be like, you can have a non-conformance to an internal specification, an industry standard, a customer's requirement, internal policies, dimensional characteristics,
Okay.
things like that.
All right. So now we're going to go over here to Suze. When should a non-conformance be raised or documented?
So we always advise that it should be documented when it's discovered.
Okay.
Don't let the time lapse. And this could depend on the impact to the company. And you want to be really careful because if you're documenting every little thing, it can become burdensome.
Right. Too much documentation can be problematic.
Yeah. So a nonconformance is more like, an occurrence, like Suzanne just said. And keep in mind that if it has caused a constraint, cost you money, has a big impact, a safety impact, whatever, you should document it.
Okay. So, Suzanne, how do you react to a nonconformity?
Well, there's some rules against this, right? You react to it.
Okay.
Obviously, you're going to disposition it. So react, evaluate, implement, and update. and record all the things that you're doing.
Okay.
So we'll talk a little bit about that. So the standard first requires you to react to a nonconformity.
All right.
You can do this by either taking action to correct the nonconformity or by dealing with the consequences. But when a nonconformity is first detected, it's important to note where it is reported. Was it found in an audit? Did an employee find it? Did a customer complain? While any nonconformity from an internal or third-party audit should always launch a corrective action, it's important to note that not all nonconformities or customer complaints warrant a formal corrective action.
Yeah,
so people like to think,
And we'll get into that of what the difference is here soon.
And then you would get into evaluating it, right? Once you've decided how you will react to the nonconformity, the next requirement of the standard asks you to evaluate the need for a corrective action.
Okay.
To do this, you must review and analyze the nonconformity, gathering a full understanding of the issue. So a full review and analysis will allow you to determine the cause. And again, we're going to get deeper into, corrective action later on, but it will allow you to determine the cause or causes of a nonconformity. And it will also help you determine if similar problems may exist elsewhere.
Yeah, we're going to get into that when we talk about root cause and some of that. But at least you need to evaluate and figure out where it came from.
I think the key thing that I would like to express is when you're going through the evaluation phase of a nonconformity, you always have to think, what else is it impacting?
Okay.
Right? You're going to do that later on when we talk about corrective actions as well. But if you have a nonconformity in front of you right here, right now, it's like, okay, think of it more globally than that one little instance.
Right.
Yeah. Can I throw in something too?
Sure.
We're using the terms nonconformity, nonconformance, problem, issue, whatever. That's all interchangeable.
Yeah. We're all,
So you might hear different, some people might say nonconformity or some might say
What does the standard
nonconformance.
say?
It's all the same. They use both in different areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're not talking with what we're differentiating is a nonconformity versus a corrective action.
Correct. Yeah.
What's next? What do you do after that?
You implement a disposition. So the third requirement is to really implement any change or actions needed to prevent the nonconformity from reoccurring that particular instance.
Mm-hmm.
And after the implementation of the change, follow the process through to evaluate the effectiveness of that change. Again, it can be interchangeable when you're doing the corrective action as well, but typically during a nonconformance, there's almost immediate disposition, right?
Okay.
You're either going to scrap something, rework something, you're going to use it as is, maybe get customers' approval to do so. You're going to fix it.
Right.
The main thing is that you're going to fix it.
So you want to fix the nonconformance as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Once it's discovered.
And the update part of it is really once you have found the effective solution, you can update any risks or opportunities that were discovered during your investigation of the issue and make the necessary changes in your management system, including updating your documentation. Again, you could be doing this as part of your corrective action, but we want that mindset of when you're documenting or talking about nonconformities or identifying a nonconformance, you want to think from a global perspective.
Okay.
And then recording it. We said before, it's really, really important that you keep documentation of all the nonconformances and the actions that you took to correct or accept the results. So providing records of how you handle your nonconformance is key when presenting your corrective action plan.
So in the past, we talked about, I think it was under simplifying your QMS, don't document everything. But when we're talking about nonconformances and these are the important things to document.
As Suze mentioned, it could become an administrative nightmare or very burdensome to your quality management system if you're going to document everything. So as we mentioned before, you want to think about the impact of that nonconformance.
Yeah, and sometimes, especially in manufacturing, if it's something that may be nonconforming in a certain work area, but you have the ability to fix it, I don't always count that as a nonconformance.
Okay.
But maybe if it goes on to the next workstation, or definitely if it escapes to a customer, then yes, you want to document it. So there's a little bit of leeway there.
Okay. But generally, if it's not very, very localized, it's good to document it.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, I think we have some software in our core system that really helps with nonconformances as well, right?
We do.
Yes.
Actually, we have the ability, we have an auto form called nonconformance, and you have the ability to just kind of plug in the information and it saves the information. You're able to disposition it, who's got actions relative to that. And most importantly, you're able to pull some reports when it comes to that, because You're going to hear later on, the reports are very, very valuable. So when you are documenting a nonconformance, you want to do it in a way that you can generate some type of log to see those repeatable issues later on.
When we get into trends
And
and
that's going to
analysis,
help
we'll
us.
talk about that.
Yep.
Okay. So, Suze, what are the impacts of a nonconformance? We talked about it a little bit, but could you go into a little more detail for us?
Well, sure. Nonconformances obviously can impact your production efficiency, which can be very costly. And it can cause a lack of integrity in your quality management system. You know, if you have, and also the perception of how well your QMS works, you know, especially if your customers find out you have a ton of nonconformances, that's not really a good thing. It can cause rework, obviously.
Right.
And I think I've gotten this from Suzanne, but the letters RE are the most expensive letters in the alphabet.
Yeah, so they are. Redo, rework.
Yeah, reprocess,
retool.
whatever. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get down to the nuts and bolts here, Suze. Do all nonconformances require corrective action? And if not, what are the differences between the two?
Well, okay. Let's start with the differences first.
Okay.
So I see cars, corrective actions, as a...
Yeah, and we call nonconformances NCs sometimes.
Yep.
And cars, corrective action, what's the R stand for?
Request.
Request, exactly.
Yep. So I see cars as a higher level than a nonconformance.
Okay.
And to me, I've always been taught that there are a number of, let's call them feeder systems to corrective action.
Okay.
Like customer complaints, nonconformances, returns, management concerns, employee concerns, safety issues, internal audits.
Well, that's a lot.
All kinds of things, right?
A lot of things can feed into that corrective action.
Right. And so not every customer complaint needs to be a corrective action. Not every customer return needs to be a corrective action. And then obviously not every nonconformance needs to be a corrective action.
Okay.
And so, for example, you ship an incorrect part and the customer notifies you, you take care of that incident and record it as an NC, but you don't have to create a corrective action for that. You may choose to if it's a higher dollar value or if it caused the customer some enormous pain.
They needed it by a certain date. Now they're backed up.
Yep. Then maybe they're back charging you.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you see a trend, which we're going to talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's some kind of significance to the issue, you want to understand it so it doesn't ever happen again.
Okay.
So hence a corrective action. Because the corrective action means you're going to put a plan together to really investigate, dig in, find the root cause, make sure it never ever happens again. But you always start by fixing that one incident. Okay. So you send the customer the right part, you listen to their concerns, move that air filter in the office so your support team manager doesn't trip over it again.
Sounds familiar.
Oops, that might be a real incident from last week.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you do, right? But the important piece is they're not one-to-one. So not all nonconformances are corrective action. And I've seen a lot of confusion about this where people think they have to create a car every time, and you don't.
Okay. So it's one of those things, let's say somebody does ship the wrong part, like you said.
Yep.
Now, let's say we look at this, and this is the 5th time it's happened in the last couple months, and it's really similar to another part, and the part number is a very easily switchable number.
Mm-hmm.
Then you make a decision to change it.
Yes.
But if it's just one time, okay, Joe grabbed the wrong one because we were really swamped.
It was a dollar cart.
Yep. Wrong cart. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Notate it, but we're not going to do anything further with it.
Yep.
It's important to note that the standard has a certain set of requirements, right? Mm-hmm. Processes that you have to implement. I think it's important to understand that the standard doesn't want you to document those just to document them.
Right.
They don't want your processes to be an administrative burden.
Correct.
To your organization. You're documented for a reason.
Right.
And for those reasons, again, we're going to talk about trends and analysis later. Mm-hmm. But for that reason is why you would not want to go and do a full-blown corrective action for every nonconformance, because you just wouldn't be able to keep up with it, right?
Yourself to death.
A corrective action is a deep dive, as Suzanne mentioned.
And
it's
we're going to talk about
dive.
that here next week.
Yep.
Yeah. One thing we haven't talked about yet, which is the disposition process. So there are a number of dispositions, even outlined in the standard, as to what you do with that part that's wrong, or the service that's wrong. In some cases, you can, use it as is. Maybe it can go to another customer, even though it's non-conforming or doesn't meet spec for the intended customer.
Right.
You may have to rework, which, is a bad thing. You may have to scrap it because it's really no good. So there are a number of things that you really should think about and prepare for in the disposition process.
Well, like in manufacturing, you have ones where you're creating the same thing, and depending on how the tolerances are, they might go to this high-end customer, and while the other ones, they can be a little bit looser in their tolerances, and
exactly.
So you just switch it that way, or not. Maybe it'll be something else.
Or you maybe have a fire sale.
Exactly.
Some of them. So.
One of the other things that we didn't mention is, in some cases, like in manufacturing settings, there are certain people with certain authorities who have the ability, like a manufacturing review board or MRB, where you identify nonconformances. It's really, really important to segregate nonconformances when you find something.
Okay.
But you also want to make sure that you have someone within your business, if you can, that has the authority to disposition, because many manufacturing sites, they don't have MRB authority.
Okay.
So they might have to get a customer concession or submit something to a customer to see if they can approve it. That's another disposition in addition to the ones that Susan's mentioned. But if you're identifying nonconformities or nonconformances internally, your typical manufacturing employee might not have the authority to say, oh, I'm going to scrap this, or I'm going to disposition this as rework or whatever. You generally have a person, a plant supervisor or something like that, who or quality, somebody in quality, for the businesses who have those positions. But make sure that you do have somebody with authority who can disposition your nonconformances appropriately.
And I had the opposite. As a quality manager, I'd be called out to the manufacturing floor, and the guys would be saying, this is no good. We can't ship it. It doesn't meet. And you look at it and actually test it, and yes, it does meet the spec. It may not be their spec, but it was fine to ship. So that's why you do want somebody with
who knows that
approval level. Yeah.
Maybe your tolerances that you're set are higher, more rigid than what actually is required. And the actual person that's on the floor might not know that.
That's right.
Well, this has really been great today, ladies. Really do appreciate it. And next week, we're going to pick up with a deep dive into corrective action, which I think involves root cause analysis as well. So lots of details there. And we really want to thank you for being here today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we want to thank everyone who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. And just a reminder that we'll have part 2 of this series, as we'll discuss more about corrective actions and root cause analysis. Now, if you're looking for more information about core business solutions and how we can help you with ISO certification, cybersecurity, or even customized training, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. If you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to do so. Or if you want to check us out on YouTube, we have a channel there. That way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's released next week. Have a great day, everyone.